Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions with my co-host Stacie here to talk about The Sinner, Season 4, Episode 4, titled Part 4. The episode's description reads as follows. Ambrose heads to the mainland to learn more about Percy's past and uncovers dark family secrets. The episode was written for television by Piero S. Iberdi. That's as close as I'm going to get on that. Previously, Piero was credited as an uncredited staff writer. And the episode was directed by Radium Chung. This is 2 episodes for her in total. This is her last work in the series, but she also served as a cinematographer on the series, and she would do so right up until the last episode. She didn't do every episode, but she did the last episode. Okay. So there's that. The episode originally aired on November 3rd, 2021. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a spoiler-free podcast. If you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you go and check it out. Then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on one of the platforms that this podcast is now available, please subscribe. You'd also head over to my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered. If you're already on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, as well as subscribing to our channel. All right, so Stacie, your thoughts on this week's episode?
Okay, so my biggest thing, and again, I said this last week, is just this story is unraveling so much quicker than I remember it unraveling. Like, I don't remember that we had a body and we're already like past that at the halfway point.
Right.
I felt like in my brain that didn't happen till like episode 6 or 7.
Right.
So again, I still don't know what's coming in the next few episodes because I feel like this story slows down a lot. It must, because there's only so many things left that I remember.
Well, I think this episode is kind of a slowdown for the story. Because for the most part, we're dealing with whether Harry is even going to stick around to stay with his case or not.
Right.
And that's mainly where the story is.
Okay, so we're halfway through now at the end of episode 4, halfway through the story. And it's kind of a switch, right? We went from the is she dead or is she lost to how did she die? Like we know she did jump at this point. But right, it's like what was happening in her life that made this happen, and is there somebody else that has some accountability for why she jumped? Is really where we're at for the rest of the story. And yeah, it's hard again to talk about individual episodes and like how the episode was when it's really such a continued story.
Right. I mean, you basically have to look at the entire thing in order to really appreciate, like, you know, whether it's good quality or bad quality. It's not until you know the entire story that you can really judge that.
Right.
And in this case, you just get dribs and drabs for the 8 episodes.
Yeah.
So before we get into things, I know there's at least one thing you want to talk about.
Okay, yeah. So 2 episodes ago, you brought this up.
Yes.
We were talking about the location of where this town is being filmed. And obviously we know it's in Nova Scotia, but you had suggested that the street where the Golden Fish restaurant is looked just like the streets from Sullivan's Crossing.
Right.
Specifically, the Halifax street where Shannon's Diner is located in that series. So in Sullivan's Crossing, that street, I forget the name of the street, but it's in Halifax, and that restaurant is the Halley Deli that they used to film Shannon's Diner. So I was like, I'm going to find out exactly where in Nova Scotia this is filmed to see if you were right about that at all. You were not correct. Apparently all of Nova Scotia is just these cute, quaint little streets.
I mean, that makes it an adorable place to visit for sure.
So the all of the town scenes from The Sinner Season 4 were filmed in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, which is about an hour from Halifax.
Okay.
So it's about an hour away. The Golden Fish restaurant specifically is Big Red's family restaurant located at 80 Montague Street in Lunenburg. Unfortunately, that restaurant is no longer in business as of now, but the building is still there. If anybody's in Nova Scotia and wants to go check out the filming locations, that's where you would go, to Big Red's family restaurant.
Or you could start your own business.
There you go.
Yeah.
Go seek out the owners of that business, and you can just name it the Golden Fish Restaurant.
You could. Absolutely.
Somebody go do it.
Yes. Please do that.
Maybe we need to talk to Reed Price. He must know somebody.
Yeah,
that wants to open a business.
I'm sure he does. Let's do it.
And then the waterfront spots where Harry first met Percy and where the video footage was taken of her down, by the water. Excuse me. That is at Blue Nose Drive, also located in that same town. And you can go right to that spot where we've had so many scenes right down there on the docks.
And we will continue to do so. So yeah, you can go for a swim right where Percy, and Bill Pullman met.
Yeah.
Well, Harry Ambrose met. Percy met Harry Ambrose.
Again, that's about an hour from Halifax.
All right. Good stuff. Anything else that we got before moving on?
Let's just get into the episode. We have only 2 new actors in this episode, and they're both only in this episode, so we don't have a lot of credit stuff to talk about.
I know the coroner that you were talking about, I'm not quite sure of his name. The only thing I've note on his credit list that I saw was Moonshine, which appears on basically all of these actors' Internet Movie Database pages.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. All right, so getting into the episode begins with a body being lifted out of the water as some onlookers look on, including Raskin and Harry.
Yeah, and M. Oh my goodness, my voice! I don't know what is happening today. It's going to be a rough day, I think, because we have a lot of talking to do today.
Yes, we do.
So M is the dock girl. We met her before. She's one of the people helping the Coast Guard bring the body up, which I thought was kind of weird. Why is the girl that runs the boat shop helping with this?
Well, maybe it's like a Sullivan's Crossing situation where they just
don't have any help. Yeah.
So it is quickly confirmed that it is in fact Percy's body. The Muldoons come in, and I guess this is like a morgue area.
Yeah. So Raskin and Harry are meeting with the medical examiner, and you mentioned him. His character's name is Tom, which isn't in his credit, but I pulled it from the conversation within the episode. Oh, I don't have his name here. Why don't I have his name here?
Oh, well, that's interesting. His name is medical. His name is medical examiner.
I failed to put the actor's name, and I apologize. But medical examiner Tom is played by a Nova Scotian actor whose name I don't have in front of me, who's in the new series The Trades.
Okay.
Which I've been seeing ads for, which features a ton of the Nova Scotian actors that we're familiar with are in that show. And he's also in Son of a Critch, which is another Canadian show, but that one is airing on the CW. I haven't checked it out yet, though.
Okay, so potentially we could talk about that if it's something that we would decide it might be interesting for us. All right, so the Muldoons come in, and Raskin tells Meg not to look at the body. It's not a pretty-looking body at this point. It's been in the water for a while.
For a week.
Yeah. So Sean ends up doing the dirty business and, looking at the body to confirm that it's Meg, even though they pretty much already know that
Percy.
it is.
It's not Meg.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely not Meg.
No, Meg is not dead. It's Percy. The medical examiner found no evidence of foul play. She died from the fall. Harry finds a star and asks about it. Apparently it was in her coat, and it has the name Valerie on it.
Valerie. Yeah, it's a Celtic North Star totem, and it was found in Percy's jacket pocket. Raskin says that it's an Irish totem to point fishermen towards heaven and fish. But the name Valerie means nothing to Raskin. He has no idea why that name would be on there. He doesn't know anyone named Valerie.
So if you get to this spot, you're both in heaven and you have plenty of fish?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Some, I don't know, Irish fisherman thing.
All right.
So Raskin was giving Meg the option if they want to send the body to Portland to do further investigations on the body.
Autopsy.
Well, they did like a preliminary autopsy, but I get the impression that like this medical examiner's not like an expert in forensic whatever.
Right.
So it was like, do you want us to send it to like the real expert guys, or are we going to bury her?
Right.
And Colin is like, we need to start planning the funeral. We're done. We're not going to investigate anymore. Let's put this behind us.
Right. Okay. Yep. Harry ends up talking to hallucination Percy, who suggests maybe she didn't want to live anymore. Or, yeah, that's pretty obvious. And also says Harry knows the feeling. And this is the first time that we've out and out said that Harry is thinking these kind of thoughts.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it was kind of, and it's why he reacted the way he did when Sonia asked him that question a couple episodes ago, when she was like, "Have you ever thought about doing this?" And he asked, "Well, why are you asking me that?" And the reason he's reacting that way is because he is feeling that way, and he wants to know if she is noticing something.
Yeah, and it's pretty much that he's been feeling this way ever since his encounter with Jamie, being the season 3 story.
Right.
So yeah, he's been dealing with stuff.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's always dealing
with stuff. But he's been dealing with stuff that's specifically wanting him to understand what's going on with Percy.
Mm-hmm.
He's taking this very personal.
Right. So we see Sonia painting. She says at least the family has her answers, and Harry suggests there are still more questions that no one is interested in asking or even looking into. He thinks maybe there's something they don't want to uncover. Sonia says they should go, but Harry makes reasons to stay, all centered on Sonia's benefit. She asks him, "Why don't you want to go?" And he doesn't really answer. He just says, "You know what, you're right, we should go."
Yeah, he ultimately ends up agreeing, we're done with our trip, let's move on.
Right. So Harry looks at the objects on the table and then ends up going to the boatyard. He looks at the boats and finds one with a missing star, and he's actually in one of the boats at this point.
Yeah, so he goes on the boat, and M comes up and is like, "Hey, you can't do that."
Right.
She ends up confirming this is Colin's boat.
Mm-hmm. And Harry questions her a little bit. She kind of seems to start getting agitated, and he doesn't really seem to get very far with his questioning. But he follows Colin sometime during the night, and he's attending an AA meeting, and he talks about Percy, about having a big fight right before she jumped. Well, not right before she jumped, but the night that she jumped.
Yeah, and this is the other new character we meet this episode. The person leading the AA meeting, his name is Owen, and he's played by Christian Murray. He is in King and Pawn with Reed Price. He's in an episode of Chapaway, and he is in the movie Bone Cage.
Right, and that's
with
the
all of those people we talk about.
Taylor Olson directed movie. So he meets with Meg at the church, and she believes someone did this to Percy, that she wouldn't do this to herself. Harry asks about Valerie. She doesn't know, and he reveals that he's leaving. She asks him to stay for a few more days, so once again they're back on good terms.
Right.
Whereas they kind of flip-flop.
So we know Colin's like,
right,
let's close the case, no more investigating. But Meg's like, something is still up. I want to know why this happened.
And the reason for that is obvious. It's because Colin knows more than Meg does about some of the shit.
Does he though? I think she knows everything he knows.
I don't think she knows about what Colin and Sean are up to.
Oh, that's right. She doesn't know that part of it.
Yeah.
But she knows enough. I would think she'd want to stop investigating.
Right. Probably.
Like, she definitely has things she doesn't want Harry to uncover.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's a little weird to me that she's the one pushing him to stay and keep digging.
Yeah.
I feel like it comes down to she's so full of herself and doesn't think that their secrets are going to be revealed.
Mm-hmm.
Yet she wants some other secrets to be revealed.
Right.
Like
she's very selective in what
she wants him to find dirt on other people, but thinks that he won't find dirt on them,
right,
which is kind of hilarious because they're the ones with the biggest dirt to cover.
Right, pretty much. So Raskin is saying goodbye. Harry reveals that he doesn't think the case is over, but Raskin tells him to enjoy his retirement.
And this is at the Golden Fish restaurant where they're having this conversation. Stephanie Lamb comes and says they're having kitchen issues. She can only sell them clam chowder.
Yeah, that's a little suspicious.
Why aren't they just closing the restaurant?
Right, yeah.
All we can serve you is clam chowder. Do you want some?
Right.
After they're seated at a table in the restaurant.
That's like, when we don't have hot water, or when we didn't have hot water at Dunkin', we couldn't serve coffee. And like, why are we even open at that point?
Right.
But anyway, so Harry, as he's leaving, spots some of the damage, and basically Mike ends up downplaying it. CJ ends up going to take some trash out, and it's pretty clear that this is payback for what CJ did to the Muldoons.
Yeah, so basically they just came in and they destroyed all of the refrigerators in the kitchen. So all of their food is spoiled. And this is going to cost this family a fortune,
right,
to come back from this. Not only do they have to replace their whole inventory, but they have to repair their whole refrigeration system.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what Mike and CJ were arguing about.
Right.
Is like they're arguing about what do they do next, right? Because we obviously, having seen the whole story, know what this feud's really about. But at this point, Harry's just like, I don't get why these families are like being such thorns to each other.
Mm-hmm. So CJ reveals that he thinks Colin is the guilty one. His dad, Mike, comes out and talks about how he saw Colin and Percy together and thinks there is something wrong with them. And I'm getting the feeling that basically what they're implying here is they think there was something more than brotherly and sisterly love.
Well, uncle and niece is their relationship.
Oh, well, yes.
I know you keep mixing that up.
You're right.
Colin is Sean's brother.
Right.
But yeah, they are definitely closer in age, Colin and Percy, than any of these other family members.
So there's a flash to CJ suggesting opening up a restaurant, and his parents indulge him, but they don't think it's possible because you need money to open a restaurant. And at this point, you should be kind of wondering, well, how did they get the money to open this restaurant?
Right. And we also see that CJ is the one who came up with the name The Golden Fish because he's just this smart, very business savvy family member.
Yep. So Sonia returns home for our last supper, at least here anyway, and finds her room torn apart. And she wanders through the house kind of spooked, and she happens to see an arm. And then we cut to later where Harry is questioning her, and basically Sonia said that she didn't stick around. She ran out of the house. Right,
but what she does know is that the man who broke into the house is wearing a red raincoat.
And she asks him where he was, and basically he reveals that he was still talking to people about Percy, that he's still basically on the case. Sonia wants to leave on the first ferry out of there in the morning. So the next morning, Harry asks her to leave, but basically says to let her leave. But
yeah, they go to the ferry.
Right.
Like she thinks they're getting on the ferry, they're leaving, their bags are packed, and he's like, how about you give me a couple more days just to wrap things up here? You go on ahead. I'll catch up with you.
And as you can imagine, she's not thrilled with this idea.
Yeah.
She says that she can't keep going along like this. And she says there's a version of him that gets on the boat with her, but he can't. He can't do it. And he says that he's forever trying to make up for something, that the thing that makes him, the special thing that makes him relentless is also the same thing that makes him obsessive. And, this is the not healthy side of Harry, basically. Right. But she ends up leaving, getting on that boat, and he doesn't go with her. And, she is not happy, and this is pretty much the end of this relationship.
Yeah. And is this the last time we see this actress?
No, we actually do see her again in the next episode.
Okay.
Yep. Harry watches the funeral from a distance.
Well, before that, he gets another visit from Vision Percy.
Right, I forgot to mention that part.
Trying to talk him into leaving. Vision Percy's like, you can still go after her. It's not too late. And he's like, I can't.
Pick a side, hallucination Percy. But anyway. Yeah, so Harry watches the funeral from a distance.
And they got that funeral together awfully fast. Her body was discovered 12 hours ago, and now they're burying her?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's pretty quick to put a funeral together.
I would know nothing about that, but yes, it does seem a little bit fast. It seems like this kind of thing that you do like within a week span, not a couple of days.
This is showing again that Colin specifically is really in a hurry to bury the body and to put this behind him.
Bury the past, if you will. And maybe even the present. He's spotted by Raskin, and he reveals that it's just him that stayed. Raskin tells him that Sean blamed himself and everyone else when he was speaking at the podium. And, he's being escorted to the car. He does not look well at all, and Meg looks pissed. Harry ends up attending the wake. Who invited him to this thing?
Well, it seemed like the entire island was there. The Muldoon house is very full of people. Gathered to pay their respects, including M is there, the girl from the docks, who says she's not friends with Percy, but like if she doesn't show up to pay her respects, the whole town's gonna have a problem with her.
She specifically mentioned the Muldoons would notice if she wasn't present. Right. But so he ends up talking to Sean, who tells him that Harry himself is the only innocent person in the house regarding Percy. Sometimes all you have to do to be guilty is just look the other way, but no one wants to hear that from him. and that was Brandon, right? That interrupts the conversation.
Yep, that's
okay.
Brandon.
Yeah,
Percy's ex.
He ends up interrupting the conversation, and eventually Harry ends up talking to Meg.
So Harry notices that Brandon is wearing a red raincoat. And he's all like, oh, it was you that broke into my house.
Right.
But then he sees, like, there's some other guy across the room wearing a red raincoat, too. So he's looking around and getting suspects in his head on the case, specifically on who broke into my house this morning, or last night, whatever it was. But then Meg distracts him.
Right.
So then he gets pulled off by Meg.
So he ends up talking about the break into her, and he asks about Colin visiting her on the mainland. She ends up denying it. And there seems to be an insinuation from Harry that maybe he was somehow responsible for her death. He says that, and, she basically is like, what exactly are you implying here?
Yeah, and he is now implying the things he's heard that, maybe there was something going on between Percy and Colin.
Now, once again, I will remind you that Meg says that he is not responsible at all, that he would do no such thing.
Right.
That's specifically what she says in the scene. She says nothing else. And that will come up again. So she asks him to tell her whatever he finds first, because it is likely going to be someone that she knows.
Yeah, so she's like, okay, investigate, but just come to me first. Which is a theme that continues through the season.
Right. So he ends up overhearing a conversation with Colin, and then he stows away on his boat.
Yeah, so Colin's talking to a man who we don't see, and I'm not positive who that was because we didn't see this person. It might have been Don Lanier because he's in this episode. He's one of the people in the party. But then again, like, the entire town's at this party.
Right.
So they don't actually tell us who this was at this time. But the voice that Colin's talking to says he hid the items on Colin's boat.
Okay, yep.
So something's hidden on the boat. We don't know what it is. Harry doesn't know what it is. But that's why Harry goes to Colin's boat. And he's on the hold of the boat trying to find whatever it is that was hidden there.
And as he's sneaking around the boat that's now on the water, Colin finds him and wonders why he asked about Bowery. And this is, the tactics that we see in this scene from Harry, it's not unusual. It's something that we've seen from Harry multiple times throughout the series, and even in this season. But at the same time, I'm wondering about if this is really the right time to push Colin's buttons, because he's leaving himself in a very vulnerable position.
Right. So Colin has started the boat.
Right.
I'm assuming Colin's going to dump these items.
Right.
He doesn't want them on his boat. He wants to get rid of it. It's evidence against him. And then he realizes that, oh, this dude that's investigating the case, that's not even a cop anymore.
Exactly.
So he's not concerned with following legal chains. He's just snooping around.
Also, Harry is not armed here, and he proceeds to do everything he can to piss Colin off.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering if perhaps, he's looking for information, but I'm also kind of wondering if he hopes that Colin will kill him.
He's not looking for information from a legal standpoint, though. He just wants to know. He wants to know what happened for his own sake, for his own curiosity. And yeah, he doesn't care. He doesn't care if he gets killed. He's right. Being completely reckless. His only thing he cares about right now is, I want to know the truth.
Yeah.
He doesn't care that his girlfriend left.
Right.
He doesn't care about anything except finding the truth.
Right. And what I was alluding to here is Colin easily just could have killed Harry.
Absolutely.
And he might even be justified in doing so legally.
Well, I don't know if he'd be justified in killing him.
He can make up some kind of story.
Apprehending him, sure.
Right. Yeah. He could make up some story about how Harry threatened him somehow.
Oh, sure. We can definitely see it playing out that way.
Right.
Right. There's definitely a lot of scenarios in this moment where Harry could have ended up dead.
Right. So Harry insinuates that maybe he loved Percy too much. And I don't remember this being taken this far to suggest that there was some kind of incestual relationship going on here. But yeah, is that how you were taking it? By the way,
that's definitely because he keeps getting all these little hints from people that they're going off on the boat by themselves and they're sneaking around and something's up. He visited her on the mainland.
Right.
Meg is all like, nope, we're not talking about that.
Right.
So yeah, he's thinking the worst.
Right.
Right.
So Harry keeps pushing, but eventually Colin reveals, and there's several moments where it looks like Colin is going to get violent, but he holds himself back.
Yeah, and we're talking about Valerie
Right.
and even Colin's like, I don't know anybody named Valerie.
Right. Yep.
But that star came from his bow, and he knows that.
Eventually, he reveals that he was trying to help her by getting her more into the Bible, and it's kind of funny that, like, Colin, based on what we know later about what Colin is actually up to, that, you know, he's taken to God and, you know, talking to Harry in the scene about not knowing anything about God and all that stuff while he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah. So we get this through flashback where we see Percy and Colin. We know here's what they were doing on the boat. And again, we have to take these flashbacks at face value.
Right.
It could have just as easily turned out that, you know, these are not true, but they are. They're telling us this is what happened. Colin and Percy were spending all this time on the boat reading the Bible, and he's teaching her religion, and it's related to the sobriety. Right. So he's been sober for, I forget what they said, so many, 18 months or something like that.
Something along those lines, yeah.
Ever since the incident that we don't know about yet is where I'm assuming, like, so he turned to sobriety. His brother
went the other way
and got heavy into drugs. And Percy's been kind of teetering this line, right? She got really heavy into drugs. Colin's trying to save her from that and save her from herself and what she's dealing with. And so he's trying to push her into religion as a way of saving herself. And in this moment, it seemed to be working, right? She was taking lessons from him. She was, we know that she did get sober for some time. She told CJ that as of, you know, the night that she died, even she was like, no, I'm clean now. So it was working to some effect, although obviously not enough because she killed herself.
I mean, there's more to the story as we go along, but yeah, she eventually ends up taking a detour that is not this religion that also does not work.
Right.
But
she was trying other things. But we get various flashbacks between Percy and Colin to really learn about what was going on with their relationship. And we see that, you know, eventually she gave up.
Right.
She was following the religion. She was trying to do what worked for Colin. It didn't work for her. And we see that they had a fight. He called her ungrateful. And she reminds him that he isn't her dad.
And during that same scene, we end up seeing that she's doing some drawings, which is something that Colin eventually gets for Harry. But so when we come back from the flashback, Colin says to Harry that she didn't want to be saved anymore. And the way he says, specifically Michael Mosley, who plays Colin, the way he said saved was really interesting. Like, he kind of, like, elongated it. It was like, she didn't want to be... I can't even really describe it. It's just a really weird delivery on his part. So he ends up showing the bunch of pictures that she ended up drawing.
Yeah, so these are Percy's drawings or paintings or whatever they were. I think they were, like, crayon drawings. And so this is what was hidden on the boat, was her drawings, as well as some other stuff. But her drawings are all there, and he shows them to Harry. And he says that, so sorry, I'm getting lost in my own notes because there's a lot happening in a few moments here.
Yeah.
Harry tells Colin that he filled Percy's head with what he wanted and just couldn't stand the idea of sharing Percy with someone else.
So yeah, she's going right back to the whole incest angle, basically.
And he's realizing, though, that Percy just came up with a different path, right? And that was too much for Colin. So he's still blaming Colin for having something to do with how Percy died or where her state of mind was when she died. I think Colin, in a way, is blaming himself because he gave up on saving her.
Maybe. Possibly.
Yeah. So, but then this is where the drawings come in, right? So Harry gets a glimpse of these drawings and he'll come back to that. But Colin's so upset by the things that Harry's saying and insinuating that he goes and pushes Harry right off the boat into the water.
And he seems kind of upset with himself that he did that. And he's like, he swears at him.
It looks like there's a moment where he considers just letting Harry drown. And then he's like, oh, crap. And
wait, he doesn't help him. He just kind of drives off.
He's struggling with it. Like, you can see it's in his head, right? But I think by the end of that moment, he wasn't going to let Harry drown.
Right, but what did he do to help him?
Well, Harry ends up swimming back to shore.
Right.
But I think that he was going to help him if Harry didn't turn around and swim away.
Gotcha.
He wasn't going to watch him die.
Right, because at the end of the day, he's not a murderer.
He's not a murderer. He's not a bad guy.
I mean, he kind of
like,
is.
he's not like... He's not going to let somebody just die.
Right.
He's not that person. He does some shady stuff.
Yes.
He has some shady business practices. He is out to help himself and his family. But he's not a murderer.
Right. So, yeah, he drives off. He doesn't help Harry. Harry ends up swimming to shore. And when he gets home, he recreates the pictures with hallucination Percy's help. And he has a memory back to a book that Sonia was reading.
Right, the one that she was reading on the ferry ride in episode 1 when they were first coming to the island. And Harry connects this story to Percy's drawing. It leads him to a place on the island called...
Baja Point or something?
Bazoo. I tried writing it phonetically in my notes, but I still don't know what I'm supposed to be saying. That's where I'm going to land.
All right.
Bazoo Point.
That sounds right.
And it's related to this myth from this story that Sonia had been reading. And I don't even remember what it was. Something specific about the letters on the drawing that Percy did made him tie all this together. And I definitely don't know enough about it to comment on that. But it got him here. Right.
So he goes to that point, and he discovers some objects that look very similar to Percy's objects.
Yeah, and there's piles of them all over the place on this island. Like, every rock has somebody's little set of artifacts on it. So you can see that many people have gathered here to do whatever it was that Percy was doing on the bluff.
And he finds a teepee-like structure, kind of made from twigs or something.
Yeah, it's like a stick little lean-to structure thing that's kind of very creepy looking.
And it also has some kind of objects.
Yeah, there's like an altar inside of it of artifacts. And a picture that Percy drew. And I'm going to say this is a picture of her demon.
Gotcha.
This is a picture of, well, we know who it's of. We won't say that now.
Yeah.
We won't say who it is.
Right.
You'll have to keep listening and keep watching The Sinner. But it is identified as a picture that Percy drew. If we weren't positive, her name is on it. She signed it like she's in kindergarten on the back.
Aw. And that is where the episode ends. Yeah, some good stuff in this episode, I thought.
Yeah, so you're right. It was really a slower... Like, we didn't progress a lot. We're just kind of like... I feel like we're kind of wrapping up some of the loose ends that we already have sprinkled.
Right.
That's not the word I was looking for, but I couldn't find the word. So I think at this point, we're not supposed to suspect Colin anymore. We took that, we dealt with it, it's past. Like, we're suspecting him of something, but we're not suspecting him of being responsible for Percy's death.
Right.
We've confirmed that she did jump, and we're really just on the why. What was haunting this girl so much that she took her life?
Yep. And we got 4 more episodes to go to figure it all out.
Yeah. And we've got this really creepy little place full of people's artifacts.
Yeah.
Added to the story. So I don't... Is that where we go in the next episode?
I think so.
Is where we learn about that.
Yeah, I think that's where Harry starts getting involved with that a little bit.
Yeah. So that's some cool stuff coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so do we have anything else to say about this episode?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, we're speeding right through this thing.
We are. So, next time we'll be talking about episode 5 on the back half of the season already.
That's crazy stuff. And we're not long from meeting Reed Price. Well, not Reed Price's character.
He pops up in episode 6. So,
yes.
Very soon.
Yep.
Very soon we'll be seeing Reed's character. And more of Zach Faye. He was in this episode, but very briefly.
Yes. And I'll talk more about that when we get later on. But it's kind of funny because Zach Faye did not really register with me when I first watched The Sinner season 4 because I didn't know who he was.
We didn't know who he was, right?
He just
I'll
seemed
be perfectly honest. The first time I watched this season of television, which was just to watch it, like we weren't talking about it. We weren't talking about any of these people. It was just like I watched this series, right? And I was watching it. I couldn't even tell you like, oh, Officer Josh.
Right.
I didn't even like know in my head there's just this one cop we keep following the whole season. I'm just like, oh, there's a bunch of cops that work here.
That's something I'll get into more. But yeah, his character did not register with me at all.
Yeah.
To the point where when I was rewatching this, like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the same cop. You got got the chief and you got this one cop.
Right.
And the rest of the cops are his background.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, his character definitely has a bigger part, as we will reveal in the next couple episodes. But even at that point, the first time watching, it's like, oh, one of the cops.
Right, yeah, exactly. All right, so, Stacie, we would like to hear from you. Stacie, we reached out.
You can reach on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Threads at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, there are several ways to do so. You can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee. You can join the Corman Productions membership for 99 cents a month. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video as well as subscribing to our channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Corman Productions signing off.